Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my practical experience as a deputy DPO. So I'm Juhi. I'm a deputy DPO for OLX and I'm as well as a senior legal counsel for OLX. There are a couple of aspects when you are a DPO of a company, and there are certain challenges that you face as a DPO of a company. So I'll just share two aspects that major challenges that we face as a DPO when we are implementing the data privacy program or data governance program in a company. So, as we all know, the regulatory landscape is completely changing all across the world. There are new regulations coming up everywhere, and most of the companies who work globally are facing challenge how to implement a data privacy or a governance program at a global level. And for their rescue, obviously, there is the DPO if you have appointed one. And the role of a DPO is not only important from a regulatory perspective, but I feel that it goes beyond that because what happens is that now every organization needs to streamline their data privacy and data governance practices. And this is just not limited to regulatory requirements. This is something that's the need of the hour right now. As I was talking about the first challenge, that is having a proper data privacy and data governance program in place. When in a company you are establishing certain principles that has to be practiced by all the business teams that are there are a lot of things that from a perspective of DPO that you have to establish. In order to establish a data governance program in an efficient manner, first of all, the requirement is that you get a buy-in from your business CXO especially, because without the buy-in, I don't think any data governance or a privacy program would be successful. And without that, you can't move forward because you will not have the proper budget to enforce it, and plus you will not have the resources that will help you in implementing that data privacy program. In my experience, I think that when you are establishing a data privacy program on a global perspective, I feel that it should be country agnostic, though it should be agile to fix through the data, the local aspects as well. But if you have a country agnostic data governance and a privacy program, you are able to include and implement the basic data principles. That is not going to change even if a new regulation comes in a jurisdiction that you're working in. So, for example, the basic principle of transparency, data subject rights that are there, data breach notification requirements, the principles would remain the same. It's just that a little bit of requirement may change from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but having a global policy would surely save a lot of time in implementation when you are acting globally. When we are talking about privacy program, there is one aspect that, as I was talking about, that obviously you have to get a buy-in, but obviously you also have to have business allies as well. You can't work in a silo. Being a lawyer, you can't handle a DPO role completely. You have to have other business allies, like you will have to have a business ally in security team. You will have to have a business ally in a product and a tech team, a CISO. So working in a silo would never help. So the privacy team is diverse, then it's great because it's better to have a diverse privacy team because it's not only about the laws and regulations that are going to be implemented, but it is also about technologically implementing those aspects. And you need the help of most of the departments that you have in your company. So the next aspect that I just wanted to discuss is that when, as a DPO, you are going for an executive buy-in, there are a couple of business drivers or deliverables that you should keep in mind while pitching your concept of the data privacy program. So that you get the exact budget that you require and the resources from the CXOs. So a couple of things that I'm sure most of the people in this room are aware that what are CXOs are scared of. Obviously, the risk that directly comes to them, and obviously the brand reputation that they are super concerned about. So we'll have to ensure that, and we'll have to convince them that if you have to maintain your brand image, and if you don't want to be on the line of fire, especially when it comes to media or in any other situation, or from the investor's perspective, you will have to have a proper data governance and a privacy program which will help you to streamline your practices in the organization. The other aspect is that obviously most startups have investors in their company. If you don't have your governance practice in place, then you risk it to an extent that you will not be able to enter into a deal, or you will not be enter into a strategic partnership deal. So from that aspect also, the CXOs should be informed about the impact in case there is no program in your organization. You will not end up getting into the M&A that you were looking forward to. And last but not the least, enabling innovation. Most of the times the CXOs feel that when it comes to data privacy, we are trying to restrict their innovation. But we'll have to make it show them that this program is enabling innovation to an extent, and they will be able to make any kind of changes in the product or any kind of technology that they are going to test, provided they are compliant with the normal principles of data privacy and the aspects of the data privacy program. So we should act as the innovation enablers, not somebody who will cripple any kind of innovation. So on that aspect also, we need to convince our CXOs. And yes, one more thing that I completely forgot, but the most important part is the data compliance aspect. And it's super important to tell our CXOs about what kind of fines that can come in, and then I think half of your work would be done in that context. Well, once you get a buy-in, once you get your budgets in place, the next issue that every DPO, or for say any organization who doesn't even have a DPO, there are a couple of questions that they have to look into. First is who should be a DPO? I think most of the organizations have this question that who should be appointed as a DPO. Should it be a legal counsel who is super efficient and he has thorough knowledge about privacy laws? Should it be a technologist or an internal auditor who can just check the controls about the privacy that you have in your organization? Well, I say that there's no right or wrong answer to that. It depends on the kind of business you are, the kind of data that you are collecting, storing, or processing. It completely depends on those factors, and as per your business structure, you can decide who would be best suitable to be a DPO. The next question that comes into mind is that who exactly a DPO should report to. It can be a CEO's office. It can be he or she can be reporting to the general counsel or to the CISO. Well, again, I'll say that there's no right or wrong answer to that. But what I feel is, I have a biasness here. I feel that he should always report to the CEO's office, because at the end of the day, you need the help of the direct reportees of the CEO when you are implementing the basic principles of data governance and privacy program. So from that aspect, I think the CEO's office is the right place for a DPO to be in. Now, when it comes to implementation aspects, a DPO or a privacy office of a company needs to have a super efficient privacy team. And to have a super efficient team, as I said, that the diverse it is, the better. Because there are a lot of aspects that a privacy team needs to handle, from data mapping to risk assessments, DPIs, trainings, etc. So it's not something that a person from one particular department would be able to do it. You need a lot of other people who have expertise in different aspects to deal with the kind of issues that a privacy team deals with at the end of the day. So I think a good mix of legal, IT, product and tech, CISO would be the best case scenario to have a privacy team. But I'm sure that it's not possible in every organization per se. But to whatever extent it can be done, I think it's completely something that can be decided internally in the business team. But for best case scenario, I think every specialized person who can help in implementing a data privacy governance program from a technical aspect, from a legal aspect, from security, from training aspect should be part of the privacy program. And in case you are not able to find one specific person from a department who will work as a whole and soul for privacy aspect, I suggest that have a privacy champ program, that at least a person in every department is somebody who's handling it, the privacy aspect for his department, and he's seeing that all things are in control when it comes to his particular department from privacy and data governance aspect. So all in all, this is what I wanted to discuss with you all. There are just two risks that is on top of my mind. As a DPO, I feel that it's very difficult to implement a data privacy program, and plus to have the perfect privacy team to implement that. Thank you.
Thanks, Juhi, for shedding some light about the practical realities of what goes into DPO's everyday role. And also, I think one important point that you highlighted is the collaboration that's required across business functions, right, for efficient privacy implementation. So I now invite Mr. Jagannath, who's the Global Data Privacy Officer at LTI Mindtree, to go ahead with his presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's the toughest time of the day, especially after lunch, to stay awake, myself as well as you, and especially after senior privacy professional like Srini, who spoke it all, right? What else do we have to say? And a legal counsel speaking about her experiences. Well, nevertheless, I'll try my best. Firstly, I want to just start by saying, well, DPO's role is really not very rosy as you think it is. It's a 24/7 role. Okay, we play the role of a lawyer. We play the role of different hats that we use or put on. A lawyer to understand the regulations, to technologists to understand how it's being implemented, a program manager to be able to implement it across the globe, across the organization, and of course a good governing body to ensure it goes smoothly. So these are the roles that we play. So what do we do as a DPO or a privacy professional? We get involved in understanding the law, right? We make policies of the law, we put in procedures for the law, and then we try to execute those procedures, right? Understand our data overall. Where is your data? What is your data doing? How is it collected? The overall life cycle, right? Influence stakeholders. I think Juhi touched upon that particular point. Without influencing the stakeholders, it's going to be very difficult to implement privacy programs. Drive implementation across the organization. Ensure contractual compliances. Again, we need to ensure that the organization that you work with is compliant with the privacy laws, as well as compliant with the contractual organizations between your vendors, your partners, your customers, and so on. And of course, continuously evaluate yourself. That's just what a DPO does. Now, the 4 topics that were given to us to help understand what it involves from a data privacy officer's perspective is: one is rising expectations on regulatory front and how DPOs are responding. I think the biggest challenge that we have when we implement privacy programs is balance between business and compliance. Business always comes back and says, hey, you know what, you're stopping us from doing certain things. Actually, no, I think Juhi did touch upon this particular point. Actually, no, we're not stopping you from doing anything. We are actually helping you do things better in a lawful manner, right? So what does more regulations mean? More controls, more scope for more penalties, and stringent contracts. That's what different regulations are talking about. Well, if you look at it, it used to be a firefighting role earlier. We need to evolve into a facilitator or an anchor mode, right? That's what the DPO's role has moved from. based on the rising expectations of regulatory bodies. Okay, taking accountability of the entire data ecosystem throughout the data life cycle is what we need to look at, and adherence to the applicable laws. Attend to newer challenges. I'm going to give you certain examples on attending newer challenges. Sensitive data. I'm sure all of us recollect COVID, right? And then when COVID started moving away, we started getting back to work. Each jurisdiction started collecting COVID vaccination details. I mean, because certain regulatory bodies mandated that you need to check your employees before they come into your workplaces, right? People didn't know what they were going to be doing. I mean, nobody consulted a DPO, nobody consulted privacy teams. HR teams started evolving policies. HR teams started looking at how to enter, help employees come in, and they started collecting all kinds of sensitive data, right? Newer technologies. AI is really ahead in the space of technology, whereas regulators are yet to even catch up. We are still talking about draft regulations on AI. So there is lots that a DPO need to do from a newer technology perspective. You need to help understand your organization on what new technology is. You need to understand the new technology and help the organization to align with the privacy regulations and so on. Okay. What data do you have? You don't, and going back to my sensitive data example, you really don't know what data you have at a particular point in time. Many a times you would know 80% of your data, but there is somebody else doing something else, like your marketing team, like your HR team, like your admin team, collecting certain data that they're not supposed to be collecting. Somebody comes up with a wonderful software that does facial recognition to help visitors visit your campus without even entering any information. Are they actually adhering to privacy norms? Absolutely not. When you start exploring those applications, you really have to understand the newer technologies. You have to map it to the newer regulations. So the demand of understanding these nuances and mapping it to regulations becomes more and more. Cross-border transfer, a very classic example. Recently, I'm sure all of you have heard about the EU SECs being revamped, and then there's a deadline of 27th December where you need to have your EU SECs updated with your customers as well as your vendors, right? So who knows about the new SECs? It's the legal team, it's the privacy team, and few salespeople who are actually interfacing with your vendors and your customers. But do your delivery teams know what the implications are? Yes, there is a deadline. The contract ends on 27th of December. You need to have a new SEC. What will happen if you don't have the new SEC at that point in time? The risk is what you need to percolate to the organization. The risk is you can lose revenue, or your cost of delivering services will increase. How will that happen? Right? Losing revenue is in a EU data controller can stop processing data outside of the European Union because the new SECs are not signed. That's what the guidelines of the EDPB talks about. So you're primarily losing revenue for that amount of time your new SECs are signed, or they can ask you to shift your operations into Europe, right? So then your cost pretty much multiplies. So these are the things that DPOs have challenges in explaining to the organization, understanding what happens when regulatory norms change, right? So I can go on and on. I mean, sorry, that's the reason I put a presentation, so that I can restrict myself to this workflow, right? And then, of course, being abreast with what's changing. And again, Juhi touched upon collaboration between teams. It's just impossible to do it all by yourself. You have to collaborate, and you need a lot of handshaking between the data privacy team and the data security team to be able to implement a lot of internal measures, and your delivery organizations, your enabling functions, so on and so forth, to help them understand what you should be doing or what they should be doing on your behalf. Okay. Having said that, I primarily use three pillars of data privacy framework. One is the overall privacy framework, which includes policies, procedures, and so on, and the governance framework in aligning with how you're going to measure your adherences, how are you going to control your adherences, how are you going to govern your adherences, and the protection framework. What technology measures are you putting together? What procedural measures you're going to be putting together in terms of controlling the overall protection of your personal data in the organization. I come from an IT services company, so we play all three roles of a data controller for our employee data, data processor for our customer data, and data sub-processor for our end customer data. So we have all three responsibilities, and all three responsibilities go through these kind of frameworks. The next topic that was given to us is sectoral nuances that affect your role as a DPO. Well, I'm sure all of you know there are several sectoral laws across the globe, right? We primarily work in around 32 different countries across the globe, and imagine the number of sectoral laws. I just want to take up one particular point on data retention. What do the privacy laws say? Privacy laws pretty much says delete data when you don't need it. So when is it that you know that you do not need it? You don't have a clue, right? You go and ask the HR team, they'll say, no, I probably need it for 15 years or 20 years or whatever the case may be. And then when you mandate 8 years, I'm just quoting a number, when you mandate 8 years, they come back and say, I have an inquiry from the Provident Fund office to give me all the data for the last 15 years. So what does that mean? And there is a regulatory norm somewhere in the system, the sectoral norm, that mandates you to keep your data for a particular period of time. And then comes to interpretation. What does our PF law say? You need to keep it for at least 7 years. So they say minimum 7 years. So the maximum is left up to you. So everybody wants it permanently, right? And similarly, if you go to other jurisdictions, you have sectoral laws that mandate every data element, the number of years that you need to retain data elements, right? So based on that, you need to come up with your data retention timelines. I just use that as an example. Similar with data monitoring. Everybody thinks implementing a DLP will ensure that you're adhering to all the guidelines. But there are different jurisdictions that call out different nuances for data monitoring, right? These are again sectoral laws. And again going back to COVID collection, all right, COVID data collection, right? Some jurisdictions pretty much say you cannot ask anybody if you had COVID attack, or ask if you are vaccinated, right? Whereas you have internal systems that are being developed to capture vaccination, and a global rollout happens, and then you realize, oh my God, this is what's happening, and this sectoral law talks about this, that sectoral law talks about it. So interdependencies and interpretations are very, very important from a sectoral law perspective. Notification timelines, right? Breach notification. Every country has a breach notification. In the United States, every state has a breach notification timeline. HIPAA has another breach notification timeline. It's a sectoral law. Then, excuse me. So similarly, there are the financial law also has a breach notification timeline. These are the sectoral nuances that the DPO and the DPO office need to keep in mind and map accordingly, and be able to relate to the organization and implement systems which facilitate that. And again, that goes back to collaboration. If you do not have proper collaboration, the CISO will be doing something else, the infrastructure team will be doing something else, and you will be telling something else, and nobody will meet the road. Okay, sensitive data processing, I spoke enough about it. Diversity information, very, very important in the United States. Diversity information by the OFCCP is mandated at the time of joining a candidate coming for an interview, right? Whereas in Europe you can't even collect it, and certain places in Europe you can only collect it in an anonymized way at source. That means you should not be able to identify who's given you that information. So such scenarios come in. So the role, becomes a lot more complicated when you start looking at sectoral laws. So again, going back, collaboration is very, very important. And lastly, data consent, all right, the data collection, that becomes a very, very important aspect. I think Srini touched upon this. Everybody think they can use consent as the mode of very freely use consent as the mode of data collection. But that should be the last mode of collection, because you should run out of all other allowed lawful bases before you get into consent, because it has its own nuances. So that's some sectoral nuances that affect the role of a DPO. Then I'll touch upon privacy technologies enabling compliance. Okay, while I may not spend too much time on this, I just want to seed a thought on how important technology is to help you in your privacy ecosystem and building an effective privacy framework. Again, nowadays laws have started talking about PETs, right? There is so much of data sharing that's happening across the globe. So the more important the PETs become, right? Some PET privacy enhancing technologies are encryption algorithms, are different types of encryption algorithms. Pseudonymization, GDPR talks about pseudonymization, now CPRA talking about pseudonymization. In fact, the old Indian Data Protection Bill also talked about pseudonymization. Synthetic data generation, anonymization, masking, de-identification, isolation. All these are PETs that are being spoken about, that are fairly matured in today's scenario. So I think it's a very good idea to use privacy enhanced technologies. While on the right side, I just wanted to bring out that aspect. You can extend technology to all the other aspects of data privacy as well. One is data discovery, and many of us are of the habit of having an Excel sheet and mapping the data life cycle of the data that you collect. So I personally feel you can get only a 60 to 70 or 70 to 80% accuracy on using that particular platform. The reason is it's up to the individual whom you're interviewing to tell you how much you are the data that you're collecting. But using a technology there like a discovery tool or a discovery engine will help you go beyond that particular the boundary, right? Data subject rights management. We many people think that subject rights management is get a subject. Once you receive a subject right, you need to just reach out to the respective teams and pull out the data. Again, the more and more you depend on human dependencies, the lesser the accuracy will be. Believe me, I think a data subject will know where all their data is more than the function heads in the company, right, on the data presence, right? Because the function heads and the enabling functions and the corporate functions will only have limited exposure, right, to what they are seeing. But whereas the data subject will actually know where all the data is going, okay? And then again, talking about privacy enhancing technologies, when there's a data subject right that is exercised, you need to even fish out emails of that particular data subject. And when you fish out emails, you can't be transferring or you can't be sharing somebody else's personal data to this particular person. There comes redaction, right? Redaction becomes very important when you're looking at email content for enabling a data subject right. Again, classification and labeling, very, very important. Not most of the companies across the globe have this as a manual process, and it's left up to the individual to classify and label. Again, this will tie very strongly with the DLP tool that you have. I mean, if the more effective the labeling is, the more effective the DLP will work, right? And of course, DLPs have discovery engines as well. So that brings me back to the point: data discovery, data classification, labeling using technology will help you encompass the security a lot stronger, right? Again, Srini's favorite topic, privacy by design, right? I think he's an excellent speaker on privacy by design. That's something that you really need to adopt. Wonderful thing that all companies need to adopt privacy by design. At least will ensure that you have put a proper framework around the privacy ecosystem and build more effective applications, build more effective processes. Again, privacy by design, many people think is only technology. It's not technology alone. It is beyond technology. It is building privacy by design processes, building privacy by design frameworks, and technology as well. And of course, I spoke about retention and risk management. So the PETs are primarily to ensure all stakeholders are responsible: the controllers, processors, and the sub-processors. It doesn't limit to one particular segment of people, right, or stakeholders. And what does it do? It minimizes data exposure and enhances protection and governance. So the last topic is building effective privacy teams. I think Juhi spoke enough about it, but I will just touch upon a few aspects of effective privacy teams. One is, I think it's important you have a very good mix of data privacy technology and regulations, right? Because the person who is actually facilitating you or who's going to be a part of your team, helping you in adhering to data privacy framework, will need to understand what the regulation is, right? We'll need to understand why a particular process is put together, and we'll need to understand why this technology is coming in and be able to question that particular technology. Is it actually doing what you're supposed to be doing, and is the process actually working, right? They should have an end-to-end scenario. So the kind of practice that I follow is I try to bring in an aspect of making everybody understand everything. So pretty much everybody in my team will do everything at one point in time, at any point in time, right? So that having backup roles, having backup resources can be very effective. And when somebody is doing a particular job, right, they will be able to understand what are the dependencies and what are the interdependencies that they will have or they need to be able to fulfill that job. Okay, and of course you need to have a continuous goal, a goal of continuous learning, right, and a collective workforce. We've spoken enough about it. Being transparent, collaborative, and of course technology and PETs is something that you really need to focus on. Of course, I mean, I would say the smaller companies, it's going to be difficult to implement a lot of technologies, but somewhere you should be able to start. And once you start, you will see the fruitfulness of that particular technology, and then you can enhance that technology. Okay, knowing your organization is very, very important. Its operations and its stakeholders. Now, we should not restrict the privacy team to be only communicators and email communicators. I mean, saying that, hey, complete this impact assessment. Can you please fill this particular form? What are you doing? Have you finished your SECs? Is this particular contract signed, and so on and so forth. Everybody in the team should know what a contract is, what a contract comprises of. Only then they'll be able to appreciate what he or she needs to do. Okay, and then must have an end-to-end influence and involvement. This is very important for the privacy team. They should have an end-to-end influence and involvement both from an internal perspective and an external perspective. Internal as in your internal systems and your internal processes. External as in your customers, your sales folk, and so on and so forth. Okay, and adopt an effective governance. Very, very important, because without an effective governance that comprises of compliance, process, and technology, you will not be able to achieve an effective team, put together an effective team. Be a part of social groups. This is something that not many people do. This really, really helps because you know what people are talking about, you know what people are discussing, you know what's new. Of course, you can't be on a website all day long trying to figure out what's new. When you're part of social groups, you really know what's new that's coming up, and so on. And be abreast with case laws. Case laws are very, very important because that is how you get to know what works, what does not work, who's done what mistake, and so on. Very recently, I was a part of a merger. I mean, it's still going on. LTI and Mindtree have come together, and we are now called LTI Mindtree. So there was a very recent case law. The Garante, Italy, actually fined a company for using the acquired entity's data without the data subject's consent, because their contract did not have that consent of acquisition. So ideally, going by Article 14 of GDPR, you should be communicating back to the data subject whose data that you have bought over, that your new entity is this, and this is your new privacy policy. And I think that it was a pretty large fine. I think 2 million euros or something like that was a fine. Very recent announcement has come in. And then again, going back, Srini has mentioned this Clearview. That's a classic case that all of you should go through, especially those people who are working on AI. Okay, very, very classic case. Almost some 7 different jurisdictions have already fined Clearview, right, on their privacy breach. Okay, keeping up to date. I think these are all something that you already know. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Well, I hope I've covered it all, especially having 2 speakers already set the context. I wish I've communicated what I wanted to communicate, and thank you very much. We'll take questions after the 3rd speaker is done.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My story is somewhat different. So, I will going to share here what all I am doing in my organization. Right. I am Rahul Rathore, CISO converted to DGPO. As Joey said, like who should be the DPO, legal counselor or technocrat or auditor. So and who should CISO report to? So I report to again the IT people, CIO. So again a classic example how we work, right? So being a metal and mining company, we are not a any privacy regulatory or something which need to be abide, right? But as a proactive approach, as an to get ahead of all the things and privacy laws, and to get ready always, we took up this challenge. And 4 years back, when we were thinking we are implementing some data security program, and we observed some of the privacy related information, the Aadhaar cards and PAN cards and medical records are flowing from one mailbox to other mailbox, right? And that time we realized there is a high time to have a privacy program in internal for internal employees. Though we don't have any customer like individual customers, right? But internal people, the stakeholders, the business partners, all are customers for us, right? So uh, and again we have a different type of customers. We have customers like HR, finance. We have customers like CSR people. So we run a very rigorous CSR program, and being an CSR program, like people used to go in various villages. They run a program for children's educational programs, and then used to keep various information from villages, societies, self-help groups, the ladies, the farmers, and all. Right. So these are all important data. And when similarly when we said like okay, we want to build privacy around this data for HR data or for CSR data, they said okay, no, we don't allow you. You are here with the name of privacy, and you are going to roadblock for us. And as you said, like you will not allow us to work. The same time, the CISOs and the security team asking HR team to you get the background verification check for all newly boarded people. And again, from a privacy team, people asking where is the consent for background checks. So it's a tough dilemma for them also, what you are doing, right? So again we realize like during the privacy training awareness, so what we realize, like privacy is not new subject. We are adhering privacy from a long time. It's not a new for us. The only thing is like we converted this privacy program or privacy law in a piece of paper. So we from a mining industry, we deal with various people, semi-literate people, literate people, the person who mine rocks and all. So what they said, we are doing this from a long time. What you are saying? So we asked them like how you are doing from a long time. They said no, we understand like the privacy. They called us like we know the Sanskrit phrase Satyam Bruyat Priyam Bruyat. We learn privacy from that. We know what to say, how to say, when to say, and this is we learn from our Sanskrit sloka. Another time when during the other person's meeting, the in privacy program also we understood. Okay, no, we understood the privacy. So I asked like, how you understood the privacy and how you know the privacy. No, we know the privacy. Like we know how Vasudeva protected Sri Krishna from Kans. And we understand privacy and security from that event. That's very good. When I went to building our privacy program and identify the people from HR or the freelance or from the CSR team, I put these use cases where I said, the people, I am not going to put my privacy burden, IT burden, security burden on you. You keep doing whatever you are doing, right? And I will help you out. So I was trying to convince, and I was able to convince the people that any of the law compliance are going to help you from in a growth side of business. The compliances and law are not blocking or roadblocks of the business. they are just help you out. On a very first day, you will start the complying the tick boxes, check boxes and all. But gradually, you will be shifted towards risk-driven organization and privacy-driven organization. And it will be definitely giving growth to your organization. So when we went with the privacy team and the different departments, they again said, okay, privacy is a very a different thing, and what we are doing, we don't understand what you are saying. So we blend our data entire program in a privacy plus security, and we come with a different package. We call it the data governance package, which is a data privacy plus data security, right? So now we went to management that the team like, okay, this is the privacy program where you need to bother about the data, the business data and all, and side by side with the business data, you need to take care of the private data as well. Then they said, okay, now it's good. And we have framed our entire data governance and privacy program like this only. We created data governance steering committee from all CXOs. We created privacy team, and we created our unique 13 principles. In 2-3 years back itself, we created our principles. I'm reiterating your principles. The first principle, we have created the transparency, fairness, and reasonable processing. Then the second one is purpose limitation. For what purpose we are taking data. Then collection limitation, lawful processing, breach notification, data quality, data storage limitation, accountability, integrity and confidentiality, boundary limitation from a data localization perspective. Data classification, that each and individual should do classification. Then enforcement, who will be responsible for privacy policies and privacy guidelines. Then life cycle management of each and every data. So these 13 principles we have created our own. This is, and around these 13 principles we run our data governance program and privacy program, right? And to support this data governance and privacy program, we have various tools and technologies. The technologies, tools, the same we use in the security program, like information classification program. We build our privacy keywords also. So based on these keywords, we try to label like sensitive, PI, confidential, and restricted data. Then we have data masking for HR data in quality, and for payroll related data we used to mask our data, right? Then we have secure printing solutions. Whenever you print something like medical records and all, the secure printer should be there, right? Then information rights management, the strong access management, virtual data room. So lot of technologies we have adopted to support privacy and all. But still there are some challenges. The one challenge is consent. It's a Herculean task for us, right? Because we have different set of people, internal users. So what we did from a legitimate business and considering the balancing test, we said, okay, whenever if balancing test goes with our favor, when we have legitimate interest of employee engagement, we'll take consent as a deemed consent or a notice cum consent. And what we did, we inventarize all the things, what data we are collecting, in which application and which processes we are collecting the data. We inventarize all the things, we put at Excel and we send it to everyone. Okay, these are the things we are collecting, and these processes and this application we are collecting the data. We send it out to everyone, and we ask them, if you have any problem, you come back within 7 days or 10 days, and these are the points where you can report the things. So this is how we managing consent. As Jagannath is saying, there is a conflict between storage limitation and the privacy. We have retention policies where we talk about the, okay, minimum you can take your data 5 times, but above 5 years, if you take your data, like retention policies don't have problem. The only thing will be the cost of controlling the data. But as far as the privacy concerned, they said, okay, after 2 years, 3 years, 7 years, you cannot take your data, you should delete the data. This is the thing where still we are managing, and we looking forward in bill, whatever the bill suggests, will do. And one thing, like because we are 50 years old organization, and the recent words from Supreme Court about the EPF and pension scheme, the cutoff date is 2014. So when they are saying with cutoff date of 2014, what they are expecting from us, that we should have data from 2014 itself. So what we are considering, like, okay, we should have data, and we are still struggling how to deal with this retention of records from sectoral regulations, and from privacy regulations. And the privacy organization and leadership commitment point of view, being a mining organization, still we have like deployed DGPO. It's a commitment short from a mining industry, and we belong to Vedanta Group, and 4 of our business nowadays is privacy certified, PIMS certified, the ISO 27701. One is Hindustan Zinc business. The zinc business is privacy certified. The second one is our iron business, Sesago Iron, and ferroalloy business, FECOR, and the port business, VGCB port is privacy certified. So this shows like the commitment, how ready we are, and how eager to we are looking towards bill, and we respect any law, any bill, and we are committed towards privacy of each and every individual associated with us, our stakeholders, business partners, customers, employees, and everyone. Thank you.